There's a land of giants. There's a land of giants. It's a biblical story. It's a story about when giants ruled, when giants were the throne of God on earth. Giants held his hand, and giants were the man and the woman who ruled, who took control of the little people who they had to hold, to raise up and elevate, to let them ascend to a greater state, but not a giant state. It's a legend, it's a fable. It's in the Bible if you read. It's about giants, how the way they took the lead. They took the lead because they were more divine. They weren't angels, but they weren't unwise. They were old and they were wise because they lived lives that were more marvelous than any other lives, because they lived in lands and planets of the kind that giants could live, and they had land. They had it all. They had it all. They had it all, and then they lost it all. They lost it all because the giants couldn't see in front of them when they were so giant to be. They thought of themselves as so much more that they couldn't even adore the little people that God put them in charge to make sure that they raise the little people afar. But then the giants, they tired of the little people's squabbles, the little people's troubles, and the little people's doubles into things that God didn't want them to do. They started sinning, and the giants threw. They threw fits, and they threw them over cliffs, and they threw them over water, and they drowned them in bits, and they broke them apart, and they ripped their heads off, and they made them cry and scream a lot. The giants were violent. They still can be, because the giants still exist, but they aren't free to express and to live freely. In lands where giants aren't accepted, man would kill the giants out of hand. Men can kill giants because men aren't small anymore, like the little people that the giants were told to not walk off, to not leave them alone, to not let them roam, to not let them go home alone. They wouldn't let them be. They wouldn't let them see anything about the giants could be, because the giants had secrets, and the giants had secrets, and the giants had secrets about the little people's future. And the little people didn't know what the giants knew about what God's plan was for the little people to do. They were to grow, they were to swarm, they were to go beyond the earth that they were born. They were meant to lead, and they were meant to be the carriers of the faith, the lights inside they would lead. They shined so bright when they were good. They shined so bright that God misunderstood, that the giants didn't know. The giants didn't know because they could misunderstand with God the way they spoke. They couldn't speak in ways that men could understand. The way giants speak to God is a different language of man. And when the giants lead, they lead with fury, they lead with an agony to win and to defeat anything in the way that could stop them, so little people couldn't live without them. But now the people are you today. All the people who live in the giant way. You live like that, but you're far more. Even though you're little, the giants know you're more. They don't fear you, but they don't keep you. They don't take care of you, but they can lead you. They've got the wise, the years of the prize that God gave them to ascend to the skies. And the giants can fly, but the giants don't fly. They like to walk. The giant walk. They giant walk it all. They giant walk it off. They giant walk everywhere because they're giants tossed off. God didn't abandon the giant man, the giant woman. He didn't say, get out of my land. He didn't tell them, you have to leave, because giants weren't free to simply leave. They didn't have homes, but they didn't have space. They could call their own, like on their own mistakes of planets they destroyed, of places they made, and then they crumbled. That's because the giants lost their way. When people lose their way, the giants can perceive that people will lose their way, and the lands will crumble, just as they did when they didn't know that they couldn't be giants no more, because the giants couldn't see that the giant lands that they lived and they made are the giant lands today that America stands. The giant lands was here in the States, in the United States of America, is where the giants ate. They ate in the great eights, in the great states, in the great places that now make states that don't know the names of what the giants might have been, because the giants didn't leave things for them to see. Of how the giant ways still proceed. Forward and forward men lead, but the giants inside that the giants taught are in the genes that the giants brought. They mix with the littles, and they mix a lot, so the littles are giants just like they taught. They mix with the women, they mix with the men, and now you're not giants, but you're not little as them. But when the little people will still grow, not taller but bigger inside, they'll swell and swole up to a size they won't believe. And in the stars is where they'll be. Your faith is there. It's not here on earth. The man who likes to launch all those rockets and thirst, he's the one who takes the lead, but he's not the one who will make it with speed. There's others who come who are smart as him, but with different ideas that he needs to see. So those men know that the lead man is the giant man who leads and can make man stand higher and higher to the next horizon, to the place that giants will lead no more, where the giant man will take them far, and it will take them to the stars and make them far, far greater than they ever could be here alone. This planet's small, and the giants know that when men grow, when men get old, they'll tell the wise stories of when they were young and still full of loads of adventures they need. When they go with speed, they launch the rockets and they marvel at the speed. They launch the rockets and they see all the smoke. They feel the rumble and they feel the earth choke. They knew what was coming, but they didn't know why. The giants didn't see, the men would hide. The men would hide when they see the men who knew more about the giant within. The giant's secrets have different things, different technology. The giant within, it can be used for men to say the giant's way is a better way. And Musk can have it. He can take it apart. He can look at it and make it a work of art. But he's not a man who's of the giant way. He needs more faith in order to lead the way. And God doesn't want him to be the lead. If he can't find faith inside for his need to make more rockets that will fly farther, harder and farther, must rocket with them too, he says. He's got to go, but not to ever leave, but to stay home. He knows what it means, and Musk can be the giant man leader of the next century. And men can live longer, women too. There's ways that the body can be preserved and not exhumed. The body's meant to bleed, but the body's meant to heal. The body's a device, not a place for us to swell up and be. Big old chabalas and ball meat that don't do anything sweet. You have to be fit, you have to be lean. The body works the best when the body is lean. Fat is not a disease or a curse. Fat is just a state of grace that works. And when fat works, it works great. But when fat's not work, it doesn't do any work. So when men can be lean and mean, and women can be lean and lean, the women can be the beautiful queens. The men will see when they're lean and lean. And if there's work for the women to do, it's the work that God will choose for them to do. It's the work of weaning off the meaning of any kind of meaning of life that's meaning anything to them. They know why. The men who lead are the men who don't cry. The men who lead are the men who don't cry. But when they lead, they're going to surprise the world with many things that they know about the world that doesn't show. That the giants of old are still here. The giants of old are still here. And they're near. And they're not weird. They're near. And they're not weird. They're near. And they're not weird. The giants are near and they're not weird.